it is probably the most socially acceptable opinion to have when it comes to hating on a specific ability. We are talking, of course, about the dreaded Infect ability, which dates back to Scars of Mirrodin. With only around 60 cards that either have Infect or reference Infect in some way, you'd think that these were some of the best cards in the game. After all, if everyone continues to fearmonger this, it should probably be for a good reason. So I will ask the question, is Infect still worth hating in 2022? Maybe a little bit of yes and no. So let's go over the ability real quick. Infect with the reminder text says, this creature deals damage to creatures in the form of -1/-1 counters and to players in the form of poison counters. The goal of this is so that you can get a player to 10 poison counters, because if a player has 10 or more poison counters, they just lose the game. So if you're caught up now and you didn't know, you should have a really good understanding of why this is a hated strategy. It is a shortcut, a cheat code. Infect and poison counters was designed to intentionally break the rules of the game. Oh, you think you have to get to 20 damage to kill an opponent? 40 in Commander? No, we still in Commander only have to get to 10. So it really helps to amplify its strength when you only have to really attack a fourth of the time someone else would in order to win a game. But in Commander, there is also Commander damage, which has always been my reasoning for why I don't hate Infect. We already have shortcuts built into the format. While that's 11 more points you're going to have to deal, you have the upside of partial credit, meaning if you're not able to get an opponent to that 21 commander damage, you're at least dealing overall combat damage. So if you can't get an opponent to 10, all of your efforts have been wasted. Maybe their creatures are getting -1/-1 counters if they block, but to me that's not good enough to excuse the fact that if you can't accomplish what your deck is supposed to accomplish, there are fewer small victories. If you lose out in combat damage, there should be some upside, and there is, which brings me to my next point. Infect isn't really strong on its own, so it's more like Infect/Proliferate, because with Proliferate you don't have to attack as often. Cards like Evolution Sage, Viral Drake, Inexorable Tide, Contagion Engine offer you several ways of proliferating, and even multiple times in the same turn. The goal here is to give each opponent at least one poison counter so that you can continue to build up their poison counter total. You probably know where I'm going with this. We have the commander option Atraxa, who is perhaps the most popular option if you look to build around Infect. She herself doesn't have Infect, but she has that second ability in Proliferate. Again, it's easy to understand why people hate this strategy. Since it was bad enough to have a shortcut through combat, here you have a shortcut and you're putting your opponents on a clock. They can put up as many blockers as they want to. If they've been infected, if they get those poison counters and you continue to proliferate, they're going to be defeated pretty soon. Now outside of Atraxa, we've had Proliferate since back when we got Infect in Scars of Mirrodin, but one of the most popular commanders a while ago was Skithiryx the Blight Dragon. It was a straightforward Voltron Infect commander, where your entire goal was to give your opponent's poison counters as quickly as possible with a dragon skeleton that could give itself haste for 1 black mana, and it could keep itself alive for 2 black. Which, looking at this card and being honest, those are all pretty good abilities. The downside to Infect creatures, it's not that they're awful, it's that they're very easy to keep out of the game. It's not like commanders where you have Kalia, where you expect that commander to be hated out early. This gets hated out early and you're dead in the water. Without your Skithiryx commander out there, you're not going to be able to deal those poison counters. And there were only so many ways of dealing Infect in mono black. Fast forward to call time and we got the return of poison counters. Not the return of Infect technically, but a way for you to make your green death touch creatures useful by giving your opponents 2 poison counters when they deal combat damage. So if you attack an opponent, deal combat damage with a death touch 1/1, you're actually getting better value. It also helps that Finn the Fangbearer has death touch himself. So this aspect of Infect and poison counters is very tame. It is a super linear strategy that is hot and cold. There's only 2 options here, either the deck works or it fails miserably. Where Infect I think is directly overpowered, it's not just by association with Proliferate, it's with giving that ability to creatures. Just any creature, giving it Infect could potentially be broken. Tainted Strike is a 1 mana instant speed, quick way of giving a creature Infect. It's the kind of play that could win you the game if you're in Voltron and you have a lot of power and toughness on your commander. You have Glistening Oil and Phyresis, permanents, auras, giving creatures Infect that way. But we also got Grafted Exoskeleton, which is a colorless way of giving any creature Infect. Now why do I say that this is overpowered? because the way that Infect works is that it's not combat damage, it's just damage in general. We have creatures like Torwaki the Younger, Heartless Hatsugu, Nekusar the Mindraiser, Niv-Mizzet Perun that become super deadly if given Infect. Heartless Hatsuku's just gonna nuke the game for everybody. Nekusar's in the perfect colors for Infect. You can throw in just about any of those cards that can give creatures Infect in there. Whenever you deal damage with a Nekusar, whenever you deal damage with a Niv-Mizzet, if it has Infect, that clock is even faster with these. You don't have to wait around for Proliferate. All it would realistically take is a couple Wheel of Fortune / Windfall cards, and you very likely win, if not just knock out a couple players. Again, if I have to agree with the consensus that Infect is overpowered, it's going to have to be with cards like Triumph of the Hordes. Anything that can give a creature Infect, it's so out of left field. Another reason why I think people hate it is that they're prepared to deal with commander damage. They're prepared to deal with a burn spell even. Maybe some type of overrun ability that doesn't give creatures Infect. So when you play cards like these, it's like using a cheat code, because the Infect poison counter mechanic was designed to be a shortcut. And nobody likes it when an opponent gets a shortcut. It feels like a cheap win. On the flip side, there are a lot of cards that people think are really powerful and have been afraid of for many years, like Blightsteel Colossus, that I think are totally fair. It's this threshold of where I think Infect could be fair, if not just given to any creature, because if it's a combat shortcut, it's a combat shortcut and I'm fine with that. But once you make it so that you can give it to other creatures, manipulate damage in general, it starts to become a little busted. This Blightsteel Colossus is going to be really slow. You're going to want to focus on one opponent at a time. That for 12 mana. You have to keep that in mind because that is very relevant, especially during the newer years of Commander, where the average cost is like 2, 3, 4. So if you don't have a way to cheat out Blightsteel, I'd be inclined to say the Infect isn't worth it at all. So is Infect worth hating? I think it's worth hating the design of Infect, where it's able to help you manipulate the damage you would normally deal off of commanders like Nekusar. I think if Infect were limited to combat damage, that would go a long way. Obviously, they're not going to go back and revise the ability. There's no point in doing that. They just won't make any more Infect cards that are directly Infect. So if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comment section what you think about Infect and Proliferate, poison counters, whatever you want to call it. The general strategy, are you a fan of it? Do you despise it? I really want to hear what you think. Commander Void here signing off. I will see you all next time.